supercharged 1961 VW Beetle. I haven't yet gotten the supercharger to work, but I wanted to show my progress. Today could be the big day. So again, I think the problem I had, I believe, was that I didn't have a good blow-off valve. So at idle, it was creating boost. It was messing up the fuel pressure regulator's reference line, and it kept going up, down, up, down, up, down, doing some weird cycling. So what I did is I got a blow-off valve, and that looks like this. So this is a cheap kind of a Chinese knockoff brand blow-off valve. There's some that are like 250 bucks. This is like 50 bucks or something like that. And so you can adjust the spring with that little top screw, and then it has this reference port. But now what I did is I was using a reference. I was using the, let's see. I was using this guy right here, and this goes in here to do the vacuum line, if you look at that. And then I'll show you the problem I was having, because the only way this fits and doesn't hit the deck lid is if I put it in something like this. That's why you can see I cut this pipe to be a little bit funky. This will fit like this, and then, but if you look underneath here, look at where that barb sticks out right at my oil filler, and there's no way I can get that in there. So what I've done, I just went and got a fitting like this, which is an elbow fitting. Now the thing about the elbow fitting is it wouldn't make it past this part right here. So I took my sander, I sanded it to make it rounder here, and then there's still enough threads. And then, like a dumbass, I barely hit the threads on this thing, you can see, but it still works fine. So what I'm gonna do is, I need some thread tape. This is, again, has to be airtight vacuum. And so, let's see if I need to just thread tape this up a little bit. Actually, let me get a little more than that. I want to wrap this around enough. So let's see. Thread tape this. And I have to put in the elbow first, and then I will thread tape and put in the actual fitting. Make sure none of the tape gets in the way of the air vacuum line. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now, when I do it, when I put this on, it has to point this way. So I'm just going to put this fitting in. You can see how I rounded that off, and now it'll screw in without hitting that little screw there. So again, it has to face this way. So I can turn this until it, see if I want to go one more turn or if I'm going to leave it just like this. I guess we'll go one more turn. Okay, that seems pretty good. I don't want to, it's aluminum, so I could strip the threads on it. Okay, so then, with that looking like that, I'm going to take this and I'm going to, again, thread tape this one. This thread, since it has to be airtight, you know, the thread tape, this is actually like thread tape for gas. That's why it's the yellow version, but I don't think it matters as long as it's plasticky rubber and seals it. You could put in that kind of more liquid thread sealer, but I'm going to try it with the tape. Now this has actual hex, so I can tighten this one down. Hopefully All right, clean up some of this tape. Hopefully a little of that tape got in there, and there's my barb. So in the end, what this is gonna look like with this, something like this. Let's see, let me set this down. So what I did is I had to take this guy here, I made a notch in it, and the clamp is going to be able to get around this and make it, but see how that bolt is right there? Goes in the notch so that it can go more deeply into that rubber thing. Then I put this on. And make this thing fit. And then, yeah, that's good there. And now look at how tight this fit is here. This is pretty interesting actually. So it had to fit, this is my oil breather line, so that barely fits around the blow off valve. This, you see I cut this out here. It kind of fits right in there. It's gonna blow some air on that, but I don't think it's gonna matter. Then this, which is where the fitting was, is barely above my oil filler tube. So of course, if I'm going to fill the oil, I'm going to have to take this off so that I can reach the oil filler. But as far as the barb goes, you know, this is my reference line. I did the reference line to both ports on the 1-2 side. Those are the manifold ports on Weber IDFs. So what I had to do for that is I purchased 4 of these guys. Now, it won't fit. There are ones you can buy like in Europe, but that was like a month delivery time. So I bought these little guys. It's a little mini 4mm by M4. Fits right into the manifold port on the Webers. You can buy these, but you have to sand down this hex. Whoops. When you sand down the hex, you no longer have a really good way of tightening it. So I sanded it down, and it was kind of a little gripper. I used needle nose pliers to tighten it down. You could also put a little regular screwdriver slot into the very end. That's what the actual ones have, is they're round so that they'll fit in the little place where the manifold port is, but you got to put a slot in, then you can do it with a screwdriver. But anyway, I had this off so I could just tighten it down as I wanted when I took the carb off. So anyway, here's my blow off valve. So this will connect into this tube here. So what I'm going to do is I've got to get so this thing here I can trim so that it's going to fit basically onto this, and I'm going to put a clamp on there. So I'll trim that hose. I got to get my clamp on here onto the outside of this, and I've got these clamps have to face down so that they don't hit the deck lid. I'm going to wire this all up, and then, as I mentioned, so there's this, that's the vacuum reference line for my blow off valve, and then the other reference lines that I have are, this one here goes to the gauge, and again that's a port vacuum line. In other words, that's before the throttle plates, so that is not, you're supposed to do it probably on the manifold, but I'm putting it here because I had made this port, and the release valve or relief valve here should make it so that this pretty closely mimics the manifold valve, except it won't get vacuum, and my gauge doesn't measure vacuum anyway, so I don't care about that. Then here is the other line that goes to my fuel pressure regulators reference line for boost, so it increases the fuel pressure based on the pre-throttle boost pressure to offset that as fuel comes into the bowls. So let me rig this all up here, and then I will keep recording once I get, so I'm going to trim this line, get the clamp on here, get this thing slid down and put this in, make sure that the deck lid closes. Again, I'm not sure if this is a good idea to have this wide open, but really the only thing that happens is there's a cylinder here with a spring, the spring controlled by this guy, so I can adjust that spring, and then the vacuum coming out of here will suck it down like this, so that at idle, I should be able to watch it at idle and see the thing move down and have it blow at idle. So I'll adjust this so that it blows at idle, but then when you give it throttle, the vacuum goes away, it should close with the spring, and then it should create boost. I am very curious to know if this is going to actually work. So I had been waiting for this blow-off valve for a while. And the other thing I did is I bought a second blow-off valve and second set of these little guys here. So if I want to replace over here, I can put another blow-off valve here. Then I can have dual blow-off valves with the pressure coming, with the vacuum coming from the 3/4 side and the 1/2 side going to each of the blow-off valves. And if I wanted to tee them together, I could tee those vacuum lines together. Some people put a little cylinder there so that the whole pressure is the same, and you're coming out of 4 manifold vacuum ports. So I could have one blow-off valve that's basically the 3/4, and one that's the 1/2. Anyway, we're gonna see, but I don't have those yet. Those are gonna take another 2 weeks to get here. But I do have one blow-off valve, so let's see if I can get this thing to work. All right, so I got this thing kind of into place here. If you look, I got this clamp, this is down close to that little bolt there. And then this one here. So none of this should hit. If I close this, it does still hit just a little bit, so I can push this. Well, yeah, it's pretty tight in there, so you can push it like this. And I think, I think I can make a little space there, pushing this down. This thing, I can turn that just a little bit, see, and make this go away from the oil filler. You can see where it's hitting there just a little bit. I could have taken a little bit off of that top corner. In fact, I still can. Let's see. Take this thing off. See, there's this little edge here, right here. So what I can do is just take a tiny bit off with my, it's this edge right here, and my sander. So, sometimes you just go. It's funny, I had to do that on my full flow fittings as well, but that should allow it to just have a little more room between the oil filler. So let's see how well that fits. Okay. So really what I want to make sure of is that I can tighten all this down and this closes. And now it seems to. So it's really this thing being tucked under a little bit. So I think that's good. Now I have the little things that hold the carb down. So those I can screw into place. All right, I was able to kind of get this hose clamp tightened down because I can turn this. Also realized that this thing comes off, so if I had an issue actually with the blow-off valve, but I think this, somehow this makes a noise, like there's people rave about their blow-off valve noise. Honestly, I'd be fine if everything was just silent, but I don't know why people like there to be a noise. So do that on this other one. That just makes sure that my carb hat is tight enough to hold air. Again, when you run this, you can just take your hand and you can feel if any air is escaping. But this should be ready to try to start up. So let me see. Let me make sure that this side was tight. I think I had at some point taken all this off, so I had everything all set up. So let's see if it'll start. See if the fuel pressure now goes up to 3. All right. The boost should be low. Well, it's at 5. Okay, well, I think that's actually great. It idled smoothly, the boost seemed to be at like 4, and I'm wondering, I'm not exactly sure, the vacuum definitely was opening this, so a little air was coming out of the blow-off valve. It seemed to even everything out. I haven't, like, if I do full throttle, I have no idea, maybe this thing shuts, or maybe I need to tighten this spring a little bit. I'm not exactly sure, but this is a huge improvement, so I'm going to probably take this out for a drive today. I'm gonna see. Now, one thing that I noticed is, look here, this is where it's coming off. So I have my air fuel mix, so I can test that. But if you look at this black spot, you would think that probably just that little idling, it's a little bit rich. I can do some adjustments. The main thing is not at idle. I don't care so much at idle, but when you open it up, you want to make sure it doesn't get too lean, or you can really burn it up. And this engine's probably worth, I don't know, this engine's worth $6,000 or $7,000 probably, maybe more. I really don't want to mess it up against a 1968 cc motor. I also don't really know, you know, it has a webcam 218 and the 1.25 ratio rockers. I don't really know how that mixes in with the supercharger. Part of this is completely custom, so actually all of it is completely custom. Also, I didn't adjust the spring at all in the blow-off valve. I have no idea what the pressure sensitivity of that is. If I need to tighten this down, I probably will tighten it down just a little bit because it seemed to stay open. But all right, great. Well, I will go with this. I will consider this a success of successfully installing the blow-off valve, and I'm going to probably be able to take this out for a drive later in my next video. All right, see you guys.